envision this was lump charcoal, and it's pretty simple. All you do is take one chimney. I have been cooking on these for years. I can tell you this. One chimney full of lump charcoal and a little tiny log will get you at least 250 degrees, if not over. That fire alone will run you about an hour's worth of a cook. So in theory, all you have to do is fill this guy up with lump charcoal, get it lit, dump it in the firebox. It's very, very, very important. Listen to me, guys. This is not a 500-gallon smoker, obviously. It does not work the same. If you go on YouTube and you see some guy telling you how to run a really big smoker, that's all good and dandy. However, that only works for a 500. This is completely different. You're gonna wanna leave your firebox door all the way open. You're gonna wanna leave your smokestack all the way open. I literally took off the plate on top of the smokestack because I don't believe in this. A smoker this size, you want extreme amounts of oxygen. You want to burn an incredibly efficient fire. This type of smoker, especially one of these $200 Oklahoma Joes, one of these big box store smokers, this is not the kind of smoker, I'm sorry, it's just the reality. This is not the kind of smoker to mess around with the dampers and try to run a dirty fire for 2 hours and then a semi-dirty and then a clean. It's not that. Just light the fire, run a clean fire for 12 hours, cook your brisket. So, it's pretty simple. I'll show you how I do it, and we'll check back in a little bit once it's burning. I got my chimney full of charcoal. The play from here is very simple. A couple things to note. What I'm gonna do is dump this charcoal inside of the firebox. I have my firebox door closed. It's important if this is your first time doing this. If you leave this open and you dump the charcoal in there, it's gonna fall out. I know that sounds like a no-brainer. However, I've done that probably 100 times. So close that down. And the second thing to note is my smokestack is wide open. Again, these kind of smokers, unless you got a backyard mill scale, a workhorse from Primitive Pits, a Syntex, or a Moberg, some really high functioning backyard smoker, this type of smoker, which most of us have in our backyard, is not the kind of smoker to play around with the dampers. Keep everything open when you're running it. With that said, this is the ideal size log to be using. For reference, let me show you for reference. This is a log that I would use in my 500. I'd even go bigger than this. This is the size log I would use in my backyard. What I'm gonna do is dump this chimney inside of the firebox. It's gonna give us instant heat. This gauge is gonna jump. It's gonna jump instantly. Keep in mind, my friends, this might jump to 400 degrees. Your gauge might actually read 450 degrees. Do not fear, it's okay. This gauge is a small contact point. The heat's gonna touch it quick. It's gonna jump. Keep in mind this entire cook chamber has to heat up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna dump this in here. I'll drop that log on top and then I'll show you guys the right way to position the coals in relation to the wood chunk to get the best, most efficient fire. All right, friends. That is a screaming hot fire. Again, if you didn't catch this in the beginning, ideally these would be lump charcoal, but it's okay. We got briquette, we'll roll with it, but these are screaming hot. Because this unit is so small, that chimney full of charcoal will at least give us 220 degrees worth of heat. That's enough heat to cook most barbecue. Again, this isn't a cooking video. I will add this. I don't like to put meat on. I don't like to cook on a backyard smoker like this unless I'm at least 250. I like to roll 275 the whole way through. I don't like to do anything fancy on this one. On the 500, I'll teach you guys in subsequent videos exactly how to manage fires for a cook. However, this application, just know my goal is to get this smoker up to 275, maybe 300. I'll put my meat on and I'll let it come down and it'll settle right at 250, 275. Once I got my charcoal inside my firebox, I'm gonna do 2 things, and then I'm leaving it and I'm ready to cook. The first thing is I'm gonna get my ideal log. This guy's probably 6 to 8 inches long, not too thick, and I'm gonna set it right here just like this. I'm gonna set that guy right on top. What's gonna happen is once I set that on top, I'm gonna open my Firebox door up, and if you give it enough time, that log is gonna catch. Once it catches, I'm gonna let that puppy roll for about 20 or 30 minutes. I don't want it to fully combust, but I definitely want it to be fully lit and flaming. At that point, I know I'm burning a really clean, there it lit just right there. It lit almost instantly. The wood's beautifully seasoned. If you have kiln dry wood, it's probably gonna happen even quicker. Once that's lit, I know I'm ready to roll. I'm gonna let that burn for probably 5 minutes with this top door open. Once I know it's fully combusting, I'm gonna close this down. I'm gonna leave the Firebox door open. I'm gonna watch this gauge. And all I'm doing is I'm waiting until that gauge is 300 degrees. If that log skips my temperatures up to 500 degrees, it's okay. Just wait. It'll slowly climb its way back down. If it doesn't quite jump to 400, 500 degrees, we know for a fact it's gonna jump to 250 and you're ready to roll. Put your meat on, start cooking. That is how I start a fire on my backyard. It's very quick, it's very easy, it's very painless. I use a chimney, I fill it with charcoal, I dump the charcoal once it's lit, I get a nice split, drop it right on top, let it combust, and we're cooking with grease. There's a million videos on YouTube telling you how to run a backyard pit. Again, in an effort not to be an echo chamber, I want to talk about or fill the void with the information that I don't really see on YouTube. And so, so far, I've shown you how I start a fire in a backyard smoker. What I really don't see on YouTube is, well, what the heck do I do, or how do I troubleshoot my fire if it's not working? If it gets overly smoky, if my temps are going too high or too low, how do I troubleshoot my backyard smoker? I can tell you, these are far harder to run and operate than the 500 gallons, but let me promise you this, I'll make this promise to you. If you can learn how to operate a backyard smoker, I'm telling you, you will be an amazing pitmaster when you jump to a 250 and up. So, right now I have a dirty fire. Temperature's 200, the thing's smoky, it's not operating right. What do you do? First thing you do, pop the top door if you have a top door. If you don't have a top door, but you got a big Firebox door, open the Firebox door, open everything up. What you might even do is open the actual door. The reason why you do this is you want to start to give the fire oxygen. What could have happened is you put a log on that was too big, it was too heavy, it was too moist. Maybe your coal bed wasn't established right. I mean, a million things could go wrong. It doesn't matter what caused the problem. What matters is the problem exists and we need to fix it. So let's talk about what it is we want to do. Do we want to get the fire raging hot? Do we want to reposition the logs? What is it that we want to do? Well, let me tell you this. In most cases, the only thing you need to do is get enough oxygen underneath the logs to get them to catch again. I'll show you a couple ways to do that. The first thing you can do is potentially introduce a really small, really thin piece of wood. Most times by introducing a really small, really thin piece of wood, it's going to allow the fire to catch and combust the bigger logs properly. So that's an option. A second option is, look, it's already catching. A second option is you can move the logs around and open up your coal bed to create more heat, and then stack more logs on top, like this. See, I just put them parallel to each other, and you can do one of two things. You can put one bigger log on top, that's gonna give you a ton of heat, a ton of BTUs, a ton of combustion, assuming you have the proper oxygen, or you can throw a smaller log on top. That's gonna give you, again, remember, peaks and valleys, that's gonna give you an incredibly quick peak, but you gotta be prepared to follow a log behind it because it's gonna descend really quickly. In this case, I'm just gonna throw this big log right on top, like so. That's gonna catch. Once that catches, I'm gonna close my cook chamber door down. Remember, smokestack always open. I'm gonna leave this top door open just for a couple minutes. I just wanna monitor that log. I wanna make sure it's not lying to me. Sometimes you put a log on and it catches super quick, but that's because you have every door to the entire smoker open, which means it's just extreme oxygen. But when you close it down, it automatically snuffs itself out. So you just wanna make sure you leave this door open just long enough to make sure that it's not being deceiving. Let me end with this point. If you have food on, let's say you're an hour into your cook, you're 30 minutes into your cook, you're 6 hours into your cook, it really doesn't matter where. But let's say you have food on, you have meat on, and you're thinking, man, I'm really worried. If I put a log on, my gauge is gonna jump, I got this big fire, am I hurting my meat, am I overcooking my meat? Do not worry. I'm telling you, it's okay. This gauge is hypersensitive. It's extremely close to the fire, but don't worry. Trust the smoker. Trust that that log is going to burn itself down in due time. Don't worry. Close the door down. Leave the firebox door open. Pump some really clean smoke and trust the process. Welcome to barbecue, folks. It's not easy. It's not consistent. It's not predictable, but it's a blast. Let me add this too real quick. This is why on these backyard big box store smokers, you cannot play a bunch of games with the dampers and the firebox door and all this stuff. You can't do it. You got enough to worry about. This smokestack, this is the reality, and it's not wrong, guys. I've cooked on this smoker, this type of backyard smoker, for over a decade, and I've turned out some damn good barbecue. So it's okay, but the reality is, this smoker is not optimized for maximum airflow. It's not optimized for maximum draw, and that's okay. You just gotta work with it. So leave the firebox door open, throw a log on top, give it some oxygen, it'll catch, you'll be okay. First, this model of smoker, it's not predictable, it is not consistent, and that's the beauty of cooking on it. Okay, so that's first. Second, keep this in mind. If you start your fire with lump charcoal, you'll get a faster coal bed, and that makes for burning the logs more efficiently and better. If you start with briquette charcoal, keep this in mind. Briquette is not as hot as lump. So what's gonna happen is once those briquettes burn down, they're gonna create a lot of ash. So it requires more maintenance if you start a fire with briquettes. So keep that in mind. If you start with briquettes, be prepared to scoop out some of that ash to get it out of the way so you can create more airflow. It's a good point, keep that in mind. Another point is, it is completely okay to cook a brisket if you're a beginner on a backyard size smoker for 6 hours. Set the brisket bark for 4 to 6 hours, wrap it in butcher paper, and finish it in the oven. That is okay. As you're learning these backyard smokers, you do not need to come out of the gate cooking brisket for 15 hours. It is okay to set a bark for the first 6 hours, put it in butcher paper, and shove it in the oven. So if you're doing that, you can run a pretty consistent fire for about 6 hours. If you want to go the long haul, that's where it gets a little difficult, and that's where this next point is really important. The firebox is so small compared to, say, a 500 gallon. There's gonna be so much ash buildup, it's gonna get really crowded. It's difficult to clean it for 6 hours. You just kinda gotta let it burn. A little trick that I do is I get I don't have one, but envision a big tin bowl or something that you can transfer hot coals into. A little trick that I've used for many years is at about the 4 to 6 hour mark, right when you're like, man, my fire's unwieldy, I can't seem to get my cold bed going, nothing's working. Take all the coals out, all the wood out, put it in that tin bucket of sorts, set that to the side, simultaneously start a new chimney of lump charcoal, get new splits, and just dump the coals right back into the firebox, and you're rolling like you never stopped. I've used that trick for many years, and I like to do that, especially if nothing is working at all. I just can't get it figured out. Just start over, guys. Your brisket's been going for 6 hours, take all the coals out, take all the wood out, put a new chimney full of lump, and get it going again. It's a really good tip. Lastly, I'll say this. What's the overall goal that we're looking for in a backyard smoker when operating a fire? The overall goal is to build a decent coal bed and have properly sized splits go on top to provide the smoke. That's the goal. Right now my gauge is telling me that I'm cooking right at about 300 degrees. Between you and I've cooked many a briskets at 300 degrees in this smoker and it's perfectly fine. 250 to 300, trust me, you'll be okay. Let me show you what a fire looks like at 300 degrees, then we'll go from there. It's simple, guys. It's nothing crazy. I got 2 side splits, decently sized, and I got 1 little guy on top. That'll give me 300 degrees for another at least 20 minutes, and then it'll start to burn down. What I use to operate these small fires is I have a really tiny shovel, or what I do is I just use tongs, and if I don't have tongs, I just move it around with a piece of wood. To readjust my fire, I just poke at it to create my coal bed. Spread my coals out. Set that back on top. Throw another log on. That's for demonstration purposes, my friends. It's a little larger than I like. However, I have used logs that big before in this smoker, and it's okay. It's okay. That size log, if I use that, what I'd be doing is wanting to get some rest. So, throw that big log on. My fire's 300 degrees right now. That big log will literally jump my temperature to about 450 degrees and I won't freak out. It'll hang out at 450 for just a little bit and then it'll slowly start to decline and it'll settle right back at about 300 to 275 and it can roll like that in this smoker for at least 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes before I have to mess with it again. So I'll throw that log on, I'll shut this down, keep my Firebox door open, and I'll get some sleep. I'll rest for a little bit, I'll come back, and I'll rinse and repeat. That's the name of the game with these backyard guys. There's no specific recipe. You just kind of got to feel it out, poke at the fire, create your coal bed, throw a log on, and monitor it. And that's the process.